I want to tell you that our republic, and I say a republic, not a democracy. You may hear on TV people talking about this is our democracy and this, a democracy. That we don't have a democracy. America's not a democracy. But that is what I fear. Because we are literally one election away from having the ability to change our republic to a democracy. And our republic to a democracy. Our republic stands in the balance, and it rests on our shoulders. And our children and our grandchildren are going to ask one day, what did you do in 2020, in the most consequential election of our lifetimes, when literally the republic stands in the balance? That's not hyperbole. Where were you when the republic was threatened? I'll tell you why it's not hyperbole. Because there is a party, one of the two main parties, that has told you what it plans on doing. When someone tells you what they plan on doing if they come into power, believe them. Because there's no other reason for them to tell you something that would be so unpalatable to half a country, right? And maybe these concepts, because they're political, are far too sophisticated for us to think about, but I don't think so. The threat of ending the filibuster in the Senate, if the Democrats come to power in the Senate, is very real. Right now, the filibuster exists so that the Senate is not a pure democracy. In other words, 51 votes cannot determine what happens if 49 people are disenfranchised, right? So we have this protection, the filibuster. But if the filibuster is ended, then the Senate becomes simply a democracy, and it's not a republic. They have promised that if they come to power, and again, this is the Senate, they will pack the court. Now, the candidate in question and his vice presidential candidate, they will not give you an answer whether they're going to pack the court or not, because they know the answer is unpalatable to the independent voter. Packing the court simply means that since you don't like the court appointees that Donald Trump has made, you don't like slimy Coney Barrett, who is fantastic in my opinion, by the way, and an extraordinary legal mind, you're going to increase the number of judges. When the Democrats come into power, they'll simply get rid of the filibuster, number one, and then vote to increase the number of judges. It's a simple majority vote. And then you can install 4 more judges who have a different ideological position. What is the different ideological position? The two means of interpreting the Constitution are as follows. There is a school of thought that believes that language is living, and that while the Constitution was written in the 18th century and meant something in the 18th century to the audience to which that Constitution, in the culture and the audience in which the Constitution was designed, the country that the Constitution was designed, because our language lives and our culture develops, that we can read into the Constitution that which makes most sense to us as legislatures. In other words, the Constitution is a living, breathing document. When you hear that on the news and when you hear that from the mouth of a politician, they're simply telling you that they want to be, instead of being a judge, they really are legislative wannabes. They want, that's what, legislating from the bench, that's where that comes from. They want to actually accomplish what the legislature cannot accomplish through the means our Constitution has determined. They want to legislate from the bench. And that's how we have despicable and ridiculous and intellectually insulting rulings like Roe v. Wade. And I could go on. Now, there is another school of thought that believes, originalist, constitutionalist, textualist, that believes that in order to correctly interpret law, one must read the text, determine what it meant in its context, and not read our current culture back into an 18th century document. And that an 18th century document, although it's 200 plus years old, that it still speaks to us and is still relevant to us today, because mankind does not change. Now, let's take these same two ideas and let us bring them to interpreting the scripture. There are two different kinds of preaching today. Those who want to read the scripture and say, well, that reminds me of something that I would like to preach on an issue of the day, and I'm going to read my perspective into the scripture and simply use it as a springboard to talk about what I want to talk about. Because the original text and the intent of the author and the understanding of the original audience, Israel or the early church, doesn't really matter. What matters is us and my interpretation. And then there are guys like me. You've been with me long enough to understand that the way I approach the text is always to ask the question, what did the author intend? What did the original audience understand? And then take the application and bring it to us. But the meaning of the text is the meaning of the text. These are two sides of the same coin. You apply it to the Constitution, and you get an Amy Coney Barrett. You apply it to the Bible, you get a straight-up Bible teacher. This is what's at stake. And then, of course, if the filibuster falls, and maybe they don't pack the court, maybe they do pack the court, but they can always pack the Senate. How? By simply a majority vote bringing the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico, and proclaiming them states. So this election, do you think a lot is at stake in this election? Yeah. Do you want 52 stars on your flag? Do you want 14, 15, 13 or 15 judges on the Supreme Court? Do you want your Senate to simply be a one-party system? The republic will then fall and we will be a democracy. And as Benjamin Franklin famously said, a democracy is simply two wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for breakfast.